this interview with somebody named Nutnfancy. You're welcome, and then you may meet some of the regular BCast chatters. They tend to be an opinionated, but largely friendly. Now, Nutnfancy is an expert on guns and gear, a reviewer of dangerous things. Introduced to me by my friend Steven, who lives in Boston, who I didn't even really know was into guns, and then all of a sudden says he was addicted. I think it nearly was destroying his marriage. He would just sit watching the Nutnfancy videos, yes, you know, one after the other.
I have that effect.
YouTube page.
Right.
Just I want to give you some numbers.
In 2 years, he's been
in
up.
2 years of being up, he has 6.1 million channel views. For his uploaded videos, he's at 36,175,337 views. Yeah, 76,000 people subscribe.
So before we get to on Skype, let me just, for those of you who've never seen him, I'm just going to play a couple little clips because and known for guns, but not just guns. But let's start with the guns.
They're also solid polycarbonate. Okay, they don't have rubber in them. Growing up in various states, I have a lot of tread. I truly believe that the RV9 holds its own against a lot of others very well on top of 22s. And big subject.
Very
and it's an age-old argument range.
I'd say
step by step.
half the people in our chat right now are just drooling on their keyboards of the types of toys he gets to play with.
Well, I'll play some of the beer while we're talking, but I think if I've done this correctly, we have him here on Skype right now. Nutnfancy, can you hear us?
Yes, I got you loud and clear. Hello, Scott. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And you go by Nutnfancy, and really by nothing more than that. Just so everybody understands that, is that for security reasons? What else are we allowed to know about you?
Yeah, it's for security reasons. There are really good reasons why I don't divulge a lot of that stuff. But more importantly, I don't like the focus to be on me. I want it to be on the gear or the adventure that I'm doing. And I've never really tried to parlay my background or where I come from to, I don't know, impress people. I stay away from that. I finally told people I was in the military because I finally got tired of everyone saying, well, you're not military. So I let that cat out of the bag.
Well, so how did the Nutnfancy Project start then?
Good question. It was actually an accident. It wasn't anything that I really intended to do. It actually caught me off guard. I did a flashlight review for Amazon.com, and it was on the Streamlight Stylus Pro Light. I posted it. It got a good response. I had an existing YouTube account, and I said, what the heck, I'll throw it on the YouTube account. And it just went crazy from there. And then I was like, well, okay, I'll do a knife review. And each video I posted got such a great response, it encouraged me to do more. One thing led to another, and here we are.
And had you really had a video production background? What were you using to make some of those first videos?
No, I didn't have a video production background, and I've kind of learned as I've gone, and I kind of felt pretty much overwhelmed by the video production side. Early on, I was using Windows Vegas Movie Studio, and I still use that one still, and various other movie products to just put the video together. The problem is I just don't have a lot of time, so I want to produce these videos as quickly as possible to a very high quality level.
Well, you have a day job, obviously, but you're pretty prolific. I mean, you seem to put out a ton of videos. How do you get it done?
And actually, I am pretty busy. I have 2 careers that I manage, and those probably take up 80% of my time. I tell my TMPers, and hello TMPers, you guys rock. I love my folks. They're just so awesome. But what I tell people is I fit the Nutnfancy Project in 20% of my life. And so I have a real good work ethic, but pretty much every spare moment that's not dedicated to jobs or to my friends and family, I'm in the Nutnfancy Project.
So one of the things that we've played clips from some of your videos on our show in the last year a couple of times, and it's more, one of the things that is fascinating about you is obviously the reviews are interesting, the detail, the amount of knowledge in it, but this goes into a larger sort of life philosophy.
Absolutely.
For you. One, about just how we handle dangerous things, but also our role as human beings and protectors of one another. And you have interesting ideas about things like the sheepdog effect. Maybe kind of give us a little umbrella about how you approach these things.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Scott and Liz. I absolutely agree. The underlying foundation of the Nutnfancy Project is that we are a human family. We should take care of each other, we should be good to each other, and we should go out of our way to help one another. The gear reviews are kind of an adjunct to the Nutnfancy Project, but underlying that is I wish to advocate to all my viewers, all my subscribers, to make the most of your life here on Earth. To get out and make those family and friend memories. I show that in my videos. I try to model that behavior with my friends, and to make the most of the days you're given. I've had sudden deaths in my family, and it's kind of changed the way I look at life, and that is it can be taken from you at any time. Along with that, I'm very big on the preservation of freedoms. That we get government out of our lives, that we are free to do the things that I show on camera without government interference. I'm huge on the Constitution, your right to keep and bear arms for defensive purposes and for constitutional purposes, which I address in my video, the Minuteman Prerogative. There's a lot of undercurrents that go through the Nutnfancy Project. I want to continue to flesh those out with philosophical videos when I get the chance. What I envision, guys, is a body of work that I do get my life philosophy out there. And I'm not the end-all expert on these things that I review. I think there's a lot of great voices out there that review the gear. I'm just one of them, hopefully. And I think my viewers and my subscribers trust that I will give them the straight skinny on this gear. But along the way, we're going to talk about things that really count. And that is exactly what you mentioned, life. How to live life, how to be good one another. And like I said in the sheepdog concept, how to step in when the chips are down and really help your fellow man.
Define that, because I think that was one of the first videos that I saw that was sent to me by my friend Steve. Define for us the sheepdog concept.
Okay, well first I can't take credit for that terminology. That comes from a very well-spoken author, Lieutenant Colonel Grossman, who put that forth. What I did with the sheepdog concept is I springboarded off of it and I fleshed it out to include, one, service to your fellow man when no one else is around. I have a video out there, it's called A Story of First Aid, and it's when I came upon a very bad accident as a young man, and I looked around, and in the group of about 30 or so people, no one was stepping forward to help these people who were on the pavement dying. So I seek to promote a mental preparation in my subscribers that things can get bloody, they can get very serious quickly, and we need to be, one, materially prepared, maybe a first aid kit to step in, but more importantly, mentally prepared. And Lenny Skutnik, which I mentioned in this sheepdog concept, is such an embodiment of that attitude. That there's
was a name out of the past, but
yes,
he was the one that jumped into the river in Washington.
Absolutely, and you know, I can't say that I'm to that level. You really don't know until you come across a situation like that. I have been in contact with many of my viewing members or my audience, and they have some great stories where they personally have done just that since the sheepdog concept has come out. There is another more serious side to the sheepdog concept, and that is pretty much being armed all the time. And that is to prevent a Virginia Tech, is to prevent a Columbine, where you have these crazed individuals go out, they just figure, hey, I'm going to end my life today. And I hope and pray that we have a sheepdog. I don't care if he's civilian, if he's military, if he's law enforcement, but he's armed, or she's armed, and just like in the Fort Hood massacre, and they stop the killing. It's about serving your fellow man, and there's a lot of branches to the sheepdog concept, but I advocate material preparedness and mental preparedness to do that.
What's your philosophy when it comes to children? A lot of people say keep them away from everything dangerous. You don't want them playing with it and hurting themselves. So do you advocate starting to train your children when they're young on how to deal with dangerous things so that they can act smartly in these situations as they get older?
Great question, Liz. Thanks. I absolutely advocate introducing your children early to the so-called dangerous things. What you do is you set standards of safety, standards of responsibility and accountability to your children, and you'll be amazed how they measure up. You being the example, mom and dad. If there is no mom, then it's going to be just dad, or vice versa. Gun safety, for instance. Typical wisdom says when you buy a gun, you lock it up, you keep it away from Junior, and you never let him know about it. I advocate just the opposite. That when you take a gun into your home, you're taking on a huge responsibility. Every member in your house needs to know about that gun, the safety responsibilities of it, and satisfy your child's curiosity in your presence while teaching them safe gun handling procedures. And I think what you will find is your children grow up with, one, a huge sense of confidence that they can approach dangerous things, potentially dangerous things, what we should say, like firearms. How about cars, bicycles, motorized scooters? There's a dozen, hundreds of things that we can harm ourselves if we're stupid with them.
We're talking with Nutnfancy. You're watching the BCast live here on Breitbart TV, and we're in our Pittsburgh studio. Nutnfancy is in the undisclosed Nutnfancy bunker.
Surprisingly looks like our bunker.
Yeah, right. We share the same aesthetic
sensibilities. Yeah.
And you mentioned at one point that there'd be a person there, a man or a woman, who knows how to use a weapon at the right moment. Liz, who had never really fired a gun before, for her last birthday, was taken by friends to go to shooting, and you said, and you seemed to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think I'm the person that you're trying to target, who was saying, I'm scared of guns, I don't like them. You're happy to have them, but I don't know that I want to touch.
Go, and even if you don't want to have one with you all the time, to take a course, or at least should there be like a gun 101 intro class mandatory for every American?
It's a good concept. The problem with that, and I've seen this as I've gone through concealed carry courses in various states where I've lived, is when we say that you have to have a course to be a gun owner, pretty soon you'll have the protectionists rolling in on that and making the requirements to that course very stringent, and they're going to shut it down and use it as a vehicle for disarmament. However, I do very much agree with the concept of introducing new people to the fun, and that's where I really like concentrating the Nutnfancy Project on, the fun of gun shooting, of just target shooting, of tactical shooting. It is a riot. It's fun. The best way that's done is a very non-threatening way. I advocate the use of a low recoiling .22 pistol to non-gun people. And Liz, I hope when they took you out and shot with you that that's what they put you on, and not some .357 Magnum.
No. We're going to ease ourselves in.
A lot of people do that. They take their girlfriend out, and she's never shot before, and the first gun and the first experience she ever has with a firearm is a high recoiling, high blast firearm like a .357. Not recommended. I'll take my sons, for instance. They were raised shooting, and the way I did it was in baby steps. I taught them on pellet guns. I taught them the fact that when that projectile leaves the barrel, there's no calling it back. Whatever you were aiming at the time is what it's going to hit. That could be a very bad thing if you were careless. Keep your finger out of the trigger guard. And they did all of that in the battery of arms, handling safety, how to load, unload. And then I transitioned to .22s. And when I did that to .22s, I'm using a large number 10 coffee can out in the desert. And they shoot that, and they can get immediate feedback that they're hitting that. It's fun for them. You really have to have fun while you're doing it. Otherwise, it scares people away.
Now, is there... we go to the practical side. So I've been shooting a number of times, and I don't consider myself to be, even much of a beginner. But my dad has been, and others have been saying, you should have a gun. You should, for all the reasons that you espouse. So what's the best thing for me? You're the expert on the gear. For somebody who says, I need to go out. I need to get a basic gun, something to have for protection. I want to go and get trained on it and all that. What are the things that I should be looking for?
Okay, so Scott, your primary reason would be to use it for self-defense, maybe within the home?
Sure, exactly.
Okay. The big thing I would say is, are you ready for a semi-automatic pistol or a revolver? I will say for a lot of people, a revolver makes a lot of sense because you don't need a magazine. It's very simple. And for people who are not gun people and willing to learn a perhaps more complex battery of arms, I would probably recommend a Ruger GP100 or a Smith & Wesson 686 .357, which you can also shoot .38 Special in. That is a very easy gun to shoot. It is heavy, it's big, but for in the home, that's what you want. The only disadvantage to those two guns is you cannot attach a light easily to them. Secondarily, if you are ready for a semi-automatic pistol, I would probably recommend a Glock pistol. Maybe a Glock 17, a Glock 40 cal. They're all excellent. And the battery of arms isn't overwhelming. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. And both of those, well, the Glock's more affordable than the Smith, but that Ruger GP100, amazing gun.
What was we interviewed a gun store owner. Oh, I remember what it was. He owned the only gun store in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So it was like the heart of liberal territory.
Right.
And he said that he always recommends getting the pump shotgun because it's the sound that makes any criminal run away. In fact, he said that he sold one to a Harvard professor, and it said that like the guy just like peed his pants with the criminal.
Yeah, but they wore like overcoats and hats going in and out of the gun store, so they wouldn't.
Oh yeah, they do. Those liberal Harvard professors, they want their guns, but they don't want to be seen, so they hide as they go into the Harvard store.
Well, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask how you figure out what items you're going to review, because I'm guessing by now that you're getting a lot of attention and people are probably sending you a lot of suggestions. And so how do you come across the various gadgets that you review, and do you get to keep them?
Yes, I normally keep everything that I acquire for the Nutnfancy Project. I do loan a lot of things, both knives, firearms. I get them back to the dudes that gave them to me. I actually prefer that. It's easy, except the time required to go get them and turn them in. At this point, the Nutnfancy Project is definitely on the radar for most manufacturers, and I do have a lot of offers from manufacturers to just send gear all the time. I'm actually kind of reticent to do that because, one, I have a very limited time funnel that I can fit everything in, and so I have a huge backlog of stuff that's awaiting my attention. You can ask Mrs. Nutnfancy about that. She is all over that. So I have, the way I do it is I'm very unstructured in the Nutnfancy Project. I first started out, I said, I'm going to do this review, and I had it written down very quickly. That just didn't work for me because I was so overwhelmed. I just do it off the cuff. And it's just, whatever I'm feeling at the time. But the problem is, but this is a good thing, is because of my jobs that I have, I don't use YouTube to make bills. I don't pay bills with YouTube. So any ad revenue that I make off of my project in YouTube, it goes right back in to acquiring, gear, and it allows me a great level of independence because I'm not reliant. Yes.
You're brutally honest about some of these things.
Yes.
I was watching the video, and you were like, there was a knife, and you go like, this is crap.
I am.
Trust my life with something like this, and so I imagine that independence is a real priority, or else you'd be feeling a lot of pressure from these manufacturers.
That is correct. I will say my highest priority, Scott, will be integrity. If I lose integrity in the Nutnfancy Project, I've lost the whole thing. And that's a hard thing to do, but I will continually push for absolute integrity. Now that being said, I also want to be fair to the manufacturers. I don't want to be what I call type myopic. In other words, I get tunnel vision that only my way and my preferences are the only way to go. I do roll in my preferences on the gear review because it makes it interesting, and it gives a rudder to the project where people can compare and contrast their own preferences and go, yeah, that makes sense. I never apologize for my preferences. I've taken heat for them, but I think they're well reasoned. I'm not always right. I will change them as I learn and progress. But getting back to my jobs, I am busy, and that's a downside. I wish I could spend more time with the Nutnfancy Project, but it gives me independence, and that is a huge thing doing what I'm doing.
I was just showing a video of, I think it's you visiting Razor's Edge,
yeah.
It's like a knife shop. You do get out and talk and go see some of the craftspeople and manufacturers of these things. So you're hands-on at every level.
Absolutely, and there's going to be a lot more of that in the Nutnfancy Project. Again, getting to just a time issue. I wish to visit a lot more knife makers, and I would love to see their craft. I love John Fitson. He's such an interesting personality. He's straight up. There's nothing artificial about John. He makes interesting knives, and he's a good friend. And he's part of my life before I started the Nutnfancy Project, and that's why I continually visit him. But there's going to be an expansion of that side of the Nutnfancy Project in my mind, to go out and visit all these places, gear places, and I can't give specifics, but it's going to be just a fun ride. It'll be like the 2010 SHOT Show vids I did, but in greater depth.
This might sound like a random question, but I'm really into books that have very explicit descriptions of weapons and guns.
Yeah,
a lot of fiction, Mitch Rapp running around with different guns and different things. Do you ever get requests from authors who are trying to do research for works that they might be doing, nonfiction or fiction, to try to make sure that they're getting it right?
Yeah, I'm no Tom Clancy, though. I have received several emails and correspondences about people who would love me to participate in their novels and maybe help them. It sounds great, and I answered them. I was very gracious for the invitation. Unfortunately, I'm so maxed out just keeping TMP running, I just don't have the headroom in my life to do that. And incidentally, the thing that makes all this possible is my sister, who's in the chat room right now, Vera Linus. She is such a helper in the Nutnfancy Project. I just can't do it without her. And she takes a lot of heat for what I think is very fair administration of the Nutnfancy Project. There may be individuals, I won't go in, that, you know, for whatever reason, they go off on tangents and hate fests against Nutnfancy Project. She manages all that. On the positive side, and more importantly, she manages all my correspondences, and including those book invitations, maybe in the future. Right now, I feel like, and I told my viewers this in my Twitter account, I feel like I'm building a bridge. And I have a real long, expansive bridge I'm building, and I put one block in place at a time. Yeah. And I spend as much time and effort on that particular block, and that would be a video. And then once it's in place, I go on to the next building block. The downside to that is I never sit back and fold my arms and look at the bridge and go, you know, wow, man, that bridge is really cool. I'm glad I'm where I'm at, because I just feel compelled to get to the other side, which I have a long ways to go. Occasionally, we'll do some retrospectives. That's what the Nutnfancy Odyssey video is about. And that was actually put together not for my channel, but for Vera Linus's channel. And so that was a collaborative effort between both of us. And I figured, well, you know, with this interview coming up, and so people can see it, and I really love the music she chose for that, I decided to throw it on my channel. But occasionally, we'll do that. And like every August, I come out with a yearly kind of summary of where we've been in the Nutnfancy Project.
So when, since you don't give a lot of details about your personal life, but have acknowledged you're in the military, what do you hear around the office about this? Do those worlds cross at all? And tangential to that, you know, as this has really grown, do you see this as maybe being something that you would be doing full-time life after the military?
And you guys have great questions. First off, in my military unit, I do circulate in different worlds. Pretty much everybody in my military unit knows about the Nutnfancy Project, but it was funny. Here's an anecdote. I'm in the office last week. I flew a sortie in my unit, and I land, and one of our office girls, who's absolutely awesome, she's a good friend, she was asking about a knife for her husband. And I said, well, you know that I kind of do that, review those, right? And she's like, no, what are you talking about? I was like, are you serious? You don't know what I do on the sideline? And she didn't. And so I turned her on to the website. At the time, there's a video up, and she was blown away. A lot of that, too, is because my friends in the unit have been very good about protecting my identity. And I'm talking, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that know exactly who I am, what I do. I'm talking within the industry, knife, gun, my military job, my civilian job, and they haven't said a word about it. And this, the only way, you know, that my identity was compromised was through an obituary that was posted from my wife's sister, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And would you like this to, I mean, I don't know if would you at some point have, you know, Nutnfancy branded gear? Do you see this becoming something that might really be something way bigger than you expected when you did that first flashlight review?
Yes. Now, will I have my own Nutnfancy gear? What I say on my channel page is I will always serve my subscribers, my TMPers. My job is along with the philosophical stuff we discussed, is to serve them with high integrity, fun, and entertaining information. And all of those qualities have to be in place. You can have information, but if it's not entertaining and if it's not fun to watch, and there's probably some of my videos that would fall into that category, I don't know, then what's the point? But how I best reach those goals is up for grabs. It just depends in the future. I could easily parlay the Nutnfancy Project. I wouldn't say easily, everything is work, but I can make a full-time living off this if I wanted to right now. The Discovery Channel was in contact with me last fall for hosting of a show. I was just in the running. I don't think they finalized anything. And I basically didn't get back in touch with them. What a scumbag, right? But I really like what I do on YouTube. I don't want to become corporate, Scott and Liz. If I become corporate, I lose my freedom to talk about these very important political issues as they crop up. I lose my independence in talking freely. I just won't compromise that. If it costs me money, I don't care. I've never been out to make money in the Nutnfancy Project. That's not my goal. It's to have fun and to help good people.
And you do speak out on occasionally on political issues, things like that. And in fact, the Minuteman Project was the thing that kind of re-brought it back into my thought to have you on the show, and because especially border issues and all of these things have been in the news so much. How do you keep a perspective on that? Maybe talk a little bit about the Minuteman Prerogative and how an audience like ours, generally conservative kind of audience, but a wide range of people, would view things like militias, Minuteman, groups like Oath Keepers. How do you keep a sense of what is good about America and the Constitution without crossing into the lines of any kind of extremism?
Well, I can see why you guys are so successful, because every question you have is excellent. I'm not even just saying that. You guys are really coming up with, because that gives me an opportunity to address these. How I will say that is first like this. There are some somewhat extremist groups out there on both sides of the political aisle. And I don't really ally myself with any type of political movement. I am pretty much independent in that regard too. I am a staunch conservative in most ways. I am somewhat liberal when it comes to the environment. I believe in protecting our environment with common sense measures. But getting back to...
in the environment an awful lot.
Yeah. I mean, like when we shoot, we go out to public lands when we do our shoots, and we take care of those public lands. We pick up our garbage. We're not trampling any greenery. I like taking care of the earth for the next generation. To me, that's just common sense. But maybe in a very staunch, purely conservative vein, that might not jibe so well. In every other sense, I'm pretty conservative. Getting to the Minuteman Prerogative. There is a jacked up way in our culture of how people think about rights. The Minuteman Prerogative is a very small effort from the Nutnfancy Project to realign perhaps some people's thinking. Getting to your question, is it radical for someone to go out, dress in tactical gear, get an AK variant rifle, and go run and gunning? We should say no, and that is a very non-political answer. The reason we should say no is because we understand what the Constitution is all about. It's not about duck hunting. It's not about target hunting or target shooting or duck hunting or anything like that. It's about that power resides in the common man. And those rights are not given to him or her by the government. They're given to him by God. And the Constitution recognizes that. It's a very simple message, and yet we've strayed so far from it. That being said, I'm not going to say there aren't groups out there that may scare people, but I think more importantly, there's a lot of people, what was I going to say? There's a lot of disinformation on the concept. In other words, because of movies, because of how the news is skewed, if an individual is seen with, forget tactical gear, if he's just seen with a normal capacity semi-automatic firearm, he's going to be looked at as kind of a whack job. And yes, I'm actually, after the the restoration of rights, the full restoration of the rights we've lost and the preservation of what we have so far. And I also, and you saw this in the Minuteman Prerogative, I made a very big point to make, I made a big point to say, I believe in working through the process. The political process. In other words, writing letters, participating in voting, being a political activist, and I was very careful to make sure that we do not bleed over into that extreme element of saying, well, our government's broken, we need to do something today to swap it out. And in fact, Thomas Jefferson has some very wise words right there in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution for just that.
And obviously, you being in the military exemplify what being a patriot is all about. And I know I haven't been able to watch the chat as much as you have, but I know everybody's really.
I think you're getting a virtual standing ovation.
Oh.
Yeah, and a lot more subscribers. I think that
Oh,
our
cool.
chatters are getting along very well with many of the folks that you passed on over here from your YouTube channel.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and we'll probably bring some folks to you too, because you guys rock.
That's cool. Go ahead.
I was just curious, I'm sure you get a lot of mail, and I know you said that your sister helps you kind of sort through that, but I'd imagine when you're teaching so many people, tips that can help save lives, not only their own, but other people when they run across, dangerous circumstances, common sense ideas on how to solve those problems. Do you have any stories that stand out that you've received from people who've seen your videos where they got into a situation that they'd seen a video of yours that really helped them actually make it through that situation okay?
I've had probably, I'm going to ballpark 25 emails along those lines about people where they had confrontations. The problem, I can't really tell specifics because one story isn't rising to my mind. I have to be careful how I answer them because a lot of them are from individuals I don't know, and so I'm very careful about, the person that could be writing said, hey, I had a lethal force encounter, this is how it played out. I don't want to advocate violence.
Right. Well, and you might be helping people. I mean, you spend a lot of some of your.
I liked your first aid kit.
Your first aid kit.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorites. Just looking at the various first aid kits that you put together. So
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily mean like a
Oh, yeah.
situation, but even people out camping and something happened and.
Yes.
Were prepared
the right piece of
because
gear.
you had taught them.
I have received a lot of emails. One guy was in a warehouse. He had watched my level 2 first aid kit. He went out and made it. He had it on his person when a guy at his warehouse had a serious eye injury. I hope I'm remembering the details right. He had like a piece of steel get shot right into his eye. And he said there were like 7 individuals that stood around and nobody was doing anything. And he said it's exactly what you described in the sheepdog concept video, and also in the first aid, a story of first aid. And he went to work, and he handled it. He bandaged it. Emergency services were there within a few minutes, but he stopped what was, if I remember right, was pretty serious bleeding. And a lot of what I advocate in a first aid realm is pretty simple. I mean, if you can treat the shock, you can stop the bleeding, and you can stabilize the victim for emergency services, if you have a rule of law, by all means do that. Sometimes it's going to be more involved. It might be rescuing someone who's plunged to the bottom of a river who cannot get out because they're panicking. And there have been individuals that did that. And speaking of which, there was a TMPer that did just that. He was on I wish I had the details in front of me, but he was given a civic award because he got out of his vehicle and rescued a mom and her kids from a vessel that went underwater, went off the road. And he is, I cannot take credit for these people's actions, and I will never do that. They are who they are. I tell people that TMPers in a lot of ways are not really YouTubers. They are people that come to the project through Google mostly. They Google an item, maybe it's a first aid kit, maybe it's a gear item. They stumble upon the Nutnfancy Project, or like you guys, a friend turns them onto it, and they're really not going to YouTube. YouTube's just a vehicle that currently hosts the Nutnfancy Project. It may change in the future.
Now, I noticed our friend Glenn Beck is doing an auction to raise money for his big event in Washington in August, and various people have done things like, I think, Marcus Luttrell, the author of Soul Survivor, is offering to take people out shooting, and Liz was the first person to interview Marcus Luttrell when his book came out. And so when I was thinking about that, I was like, when I first contacted Nutnfancy about coming on the BCast, your first response was, "Hey, I'll fly out and to Pittsburgh and be on your show." And I was like, "No, you don't have to go to all of that trouble. Skype works okay." But if we ever were able to find our way to be out like near you, I'm trying to put you on the spot to commit to. I just have I would love to watch to be behind the camera as you teach Liz how to shoot. So I want to just throw that out. That could be a possibility.
That'd be a tall order.
Absolutely. I'll do my best to make time for that. That would be a fun video. I think it'd be a good cross promotion with Breitbart, and I would love to host you guys. We'll use some of my crew members, and also Liz. For the longest time, I have been wanting to do, and I do have female audience members in the Nutnfancy Project, quite a few actually. And I want to do female-specific videos with firearms. You'll see more of that in the Nutnfancy Project.
That'd be great, because you don't often see a lot of that.
No.
Today we saw Heidi Montag putting video of herself up, shooting, and tweeting it out, trying to get a movie part. I'm like, that's not exactly what we're looking for when it comes to firearm safety and learning to shoot. So I think a lot of people don't think of women when it comes to this type of thing, and I think it's a shame. It would be nice to have more women involved.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, as firearms owners, and I know the dudes in the chat room, dudettes in the chat room, we should be promoters and exemplary citizens in responsibility and in all other respects of being accountable citizens, and promoting that people who don't know about our sport come over and check it out. If you have people that don't shoot, it's really easy to make time in your make time in your schedule, get out and have a fun shooting exercise with them. And I'll have more videos on that, and maybe in some way bring over more advocates to the gun rights issue.
Well, when I talked to your sister when we were setting this up, and she said, and knowing how busy you are, I think I originally said that we would probably talk to you for 20 or 30 minutes, and I think we've pushed the envelope to nearly 40. And I said my general rule on the BCast is we talk to people until they get boring, and then we hang up on them. So you're not boring at all, but I don't want to take advantage of your time. But if there's any kind of summary thought that about the experience that this has been for you these last 2 years, hit us with it.
Okay. I have been overwhelmed at the response of my team peers for the Nutnfancy Project. When I email my friends, and that's what they are, they're my friends in my virtual world, but in reality it's the real world. I tell them at the end, I was like, I thought that when I posted my reviews that I would stabilize at maybe about 2,000, 3,000 subscribers, and it would be just kind of a hardcore group of gearheads that would await my next video. I've always been overwhelmed at the response and the growth of the Nutnfancy Project. And I'm grateful for it. That being said, I do disconnect myself from it. I don't dwell upon it. I don't dwell upon any past accomplishments. I always feel very inadequate as I approach the service of my subscribership. I want to have more videos out there. I want them to be higher quality. I want them to meet their needs better. I want to be honest. I want to promote goodness in the world. And that's what I'm striving desperately to do with my videos in the Nutnfancy Project. I am a big believer, again, in the Constitution of the United States and the right to keep and bear arms. That's a continuing theme in the Nutnfancy Project. But also there's a lot of fun gear adventures that I promote. I'll always have integrity as I approach this, and I'll always do my absolute best to honor the trust that is placed in me and the enthusiasm which the Nutnfancy fans place in me. I'm humbled by it, and I can't thank them enough for it, and Verolinus does too.
And I'm going to be greedy because I have one other question.
Go ahead, that's fine.
In chat who are just getting to know you for the first time and are flipping over to your YouTube channel. Is there a progression when people want to start digging in? to what you're doing.
There's
Does
so
it
much
matter
material.
where they start? Because there's so many videos. Do you start at the beginning and work your way through? Is there progression, or you just dive in with the latest video?
That is another good question. It is overwhelming, and the YouTube environment used to be a lot better because you could find the Nutnfancy playlists so much easier. I do have playlists separating themes of videos, and I do have different people that follow TMP. There might be some knife people that have no interest in guns and vice versa. There are some first aid people, preparedness people that would really like my concept urban survival kit series of videos, and I'll have more on that as well. And they don't like perhaps the knife videos. And to serve those people, there are playlists in YouTube. I recommend going to the Nutnfancy channel page in YouTube. In the upper right hand side, you should see a little icon there that you can click on to sort the playlists. And then whatever that person is interested in, that's where they should start, is go to that playlist and just start picking videos apart there. Some people too, Liz, will say, well, why don't you have a website? And I intentionally do not, because one, I just don't have the time to run it. Verolinus doesn't have the time to run it. She's spending so much time just keeping the YouTube TMP thing going. The day will come we have a website. The day will come when those videos are much more organized so people can go and find them. But for now, to answer the question, please search out the Nutnfancy playlists. Go in there and start picking it apart. One of them that you might want to start with is, I think I have one like the philosophical political videos where I have the sheepdog concept. Another good one for the seriousness of being armed decision is a concealed carry protocol, and some others like that.
Well, listen, we really appreciate you taking the time to explain all of this, and I'm sure we'll be excited to have you back on sometime in the future, and maybe actually make it happen where we get you out there and you can teach Liz some sensible things to do with guns.
Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you very much, Liz. It's my privilege to be on your show. You have a great product, and I hope to do it in the future, and you do have an invite to come out to TMP.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
All right.
Have a great night.
Thanks.
And thanks to all of your fans that came over and joined us on the show today.
You
too.
bet.
It was great to have them.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Indeed. And you watch the BCast on Breitbart TV live show.
There you have it, Breitbart TV. Cool, huh? I'll try to post this video up. I hope you guys could hear everything. Cool people. Scott, Liz, they are styling. Good people. Really grateful they had us on. See you guys later.